create a function that looks through an array, first argument, and returns the first element in the array that passes a truth test, second argument. What this means here by a truth test is it's really saying it passes a function that will return true or false, which is clearly what we have here. So it's essentially going through this array as if it is a list of arguments. This array here is the arguments we will be using for this second argument here, the function. This is not really so much a math or logic problem as it is a problem that tests your fundamental understanding of JavaScript, namely the idea of higher order functions, and that functions can be used as a value to be passed to other functions. It's a really powerful concept and a really good one to get a good hang of. So first thing to realize is that this whole thing right here, this whole function, this whole anonymous function expression, this is one argument. And if that's a little confusing, realize that we can write it like this as well. If we have a function, like a function named test, and I'm just going to type out the exact same function that we have underneath here. And I'm going to go down here and once I can highlight. So this is the exact same thing as this. It'll take this function, and you might be thinking, well, this function isn't invoked. Well, exactly. That's what we're going to be doing here. So this is actually a little bit more understandable. When you see it in its full expression form, when you see it like this, you might think that we might be invoking it, but we're actually not yet, right? We're just declaring it, and the result of this gets passed as a function, or in other words, it gets passed as something like this. So we'll keep it like this for readability's sake. And I'm first going to go through a more detailed solution so we get the logic behind this, because what we are essentially doing is making an array method, like some of the great array methods that are available to learn about in another video. So let's go through this. We can get rid of this here. We're going to iterate through this array using a for loop. So we have our usual for var I equals 0, I is less than array.length, I++. Now, this test is the function that's going to be run to actually test if a certain number in the array is true for the rule. So we will have to invoke, and remember, this is getting passed in this parameter as func. So when I do this, it actually might be more helpful to I'll show you something real quick. If we console log func, if we console log our parameter here, and I'm just going to return so we don't return a value we can't get to. If I just do this and we run this right here, so we run this. If I look at my console, you can see here what was returned is the actual function right here. So we have that function as a parameter. So if we invoke it with, say, the number 1, it's going to pass 1 into here and return if 1 is modulo 2 is equal to 0. If we run that, we get back false. It is not, and that is correct. So once you get your head around the idea that the function is an argument, it's the exact same nature as just using a function. It's just abstracted a little bit. So back to our for loop, we're just going to keep iterating until we find the first value in this array that will pass this test. So we're just looking for, by invoking our test function, passing in whatever argument in the array we are currently at, so that is r of I, And that's all we need, because this will return true or false. So if this is true, it just returns it. And if that is the case, we want to return that argument that we passed the test with. And everything looks good. Let's try running that. As you can see, we've stormed the castle with just a few lines of code. If you're wondering, by the way, you might have noticed that this should return undefined, but we have not actually returned undefined. That's another nice thing about JavaScript, is that for this one right here, since we never actually hit a true statement here, we just have always skipped this and we just got to the end of the function. If a function ends with nothing formally returned, it will return undefined by default, so that's why that still works. Now let me show you how this is going to work with array.filter. Array.filter is a method on an array that takes a callback function, in this case the function that gets passed back, and returns an array of values that only pass that callback. So if we change that array argument to be array.filter, we pass in test, and if we return the array right now, it won't pass yet, but if we return the array, you see we get the values that pass. This is the test that, in the example, passes for even numbers. We get the 2 even numbers in the array, and we always want the first one that passes, or the 0th index. So if we return array of 0, and let's just condense all this space, because it's so exciting that we have a powerful function in about 2 lines. If we return array index 0 here, and run the test, we get a pass just as we did with the bigger logic. Hopefully that all made sense. This is great knowledge to have. It will also help you in the next algorithm challenge, which also uses the idea of using a callback function. If you don't understand something, you know what to do. Leave something in the comments, and I will try to explain it further. Thank you for watching.